We are studying Sri Aurobindo's commentary on the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and we have seen that it is a profound text with deep symbolism and compact, condensed with knowledge, wisdom and experience. But the starting point, the very perspective of the Vedic rishis is so different from the modern mind of humanity that it takes us some time to disengage from our habitual perspective of the universe and view things from their vision. But as we have been studying the text, we have been drawn more and more into this vision, and especially following the Vedic approach of study, relying more on the intuitive perception, we find ourselves looking at the universe differently, experiencing the universe differently. In the first verse, we found the description of the cosmic horse, moving in speed, whose head is dawn, his eyes the sun, his breath is the wind, his wide open mouth is the universal fire. But the self of the horse is time. The size of the horse is the size of the cosmos, because the heaven is his back, the midworld his belly, earth is his footing. The regions, the seasons, the months, the half months, day and night, the stars, etc. are all described in association with different parts and functions of the body. And his powers are described in the functions. When he shakes himself, there is thunder. When he stretches himself, there is lightning. And the voice, his speech, is the creative power by which things are cast into manifestation. And we have seen each of these has brought us closer not only to an understanding of how the universe is manifested from the unmanifest, but also how these different aspects of the universe are interlinked, interdependent, and throughout this manifestation there is this tremendous power that surges out to bring into being the universe. It moves in great speed, and this unknown power is the cosmic horse here. The second verse, which we began to study last time, is taking this image further, but also to greater depth. And here we find the secret, the key to experiencing the nature of this cosmic power. We read the text last time in translation. Day was the grandeur that was born before the horse as he galloped. The eastern ocean gave it birth. Night was the grandeur that was born behind him, and its birth was from the other waters. These are the grandeurs that came into being on either side of the horse. And we saw that if we simply read this text, it would be so arcane as to be completely unintelligible. But Sri Aurobindo has already revealed the key to understanding this text. And he explains that the verse describes the most wonderful and fundamental greatnesses of the horse. And these powers of the horse are not material powers. They are sunrise, sunset, day and night are their symbols. But what is it? It is the power of time. Time, that condition of the universal mind which alone makes the ordering of the universe in space possible. So sunrise and sunset, representing here birth and death as the front and the hind part of the horse, are this emergence into manifestation, the power to draw into manifestation. And on the other side, the power by which things continuously disappear into the unmanifest. And this is the deeper sense of the terms used for day and night. And we saw that throughout this cosmic world experience, there is a continuous unleashing of forms into manifestation from the unmanifest. And at the same time, things which have been used up, are no more relevant, are gradually dissipating and are withdrawn into the unmanifest. The power that draws into manifestation is the first power of this cosmic horse. And the second great power is the power by which he withdraws into the unmanifest. We used certain images last time to appreciate the full scope of this, which images we will repeat today also, but then go a little deeper. But first we ask, why do they use the symbol of day and night for this power of manifestation and the power to withdraw into the unmanifest? And this has to do with the nature of the human experience. If we have to describe things which are outside the domain of our experience, we do not have a vocabulary. Although we can create a new vocabulary, it would not make sense to another person. So the Vedic rishis, with their profound insight, used an existing vocabulary which is accessible to all, which is part of our normal human experience, but they used that vocabulary to indicate things which were beyond the normal experience. The result is, this vocabulary allows us to make a first entry into that higher experience by what we already know. But then tracing back the root sounds and their etymology and their vibrational quality, one can actually ascend all the way to the higher, deeper spiritual experience, which is not accessible currently. So a kind of a bridge is created in the way the words are used, a bridge that allows us to ascend from what we know and experience to what we do not know and cannot yet experience. This is the reason why the particular formulation of the mantras and the particular sounds used were considered to be so valuable, and the precision and accuracy was protected with so much trouble. So in this case, the words used for the two powers in the symbol are day and night, aharva and ratri. And why day and night? In the human experience, we experience emergence into manifestation and the withdrawal into dissolution in these two terms. Let us say you step out in the middle of the night and the night is dark, the moon is not there, the stars are covered by clouds, and as you step out into the darkness, you do not know where you are. You do not see anything around you. Everything is dark, unknown, inaccessible to our senses. And yet, things are there. You do not see them. They do not exist for you, and yet they are. As the dawn emerges, as the light of the sun fills the space, gradually these things come into our awareness. And I suddenly realize that I am standing here on the edge of a cliff. Around me are trees. On the other side of the valley is a mountain, and everything comes into my awareness. Had I perhaps tried to move in the midst of the darkness, I might have collided with those objects, but I would still not know what I have touched, where I have fallen. Everything would still be not manifest to my awareness. They would still exist. But with the dawning, they come into awareness, and therefore they become manifest to my reality of world experience. On the other side, as the sun sets, as the night comes into her own, the light fades, and all that I see in my world experience gradually begins to fade out, until in the dead of darkness, everything is again gone. I do not know where I am, I do not know what exists around me, yet those things are there. So such is the nature of the world experience when things are brought into manifestation or withdrawn. Sri Aurobindo explains, and we read the text last time, that in the Parabrahman, in the highest status of the divine consciousness, all things exist already, but they are not here manifest. They are already there in being, not in time. And he says, the universal thought expressing itself as time reaches them, they seem to be born. It passes away from them, they seem to perish. But there they still are in being, but not in time. The two greatnesses of the appearance of things in time and space and their disappearance in time and space act always and continuously so long as the horse is galloping. So there is this tremendous power, cosmic power, which is moving, and as it moves, its front cutting edge turns its attention to what must be brought into manifestation, and thus they come into the manifestation. And this power is akin to the dawning of the day. The things were already there, but the light shining on them brings them into manifestation. On the other side, as his attention, the cosmic thought, as he describes here, the cosmic thought turns away from them, they slide out back into the unmanifest, where they always were, but no more expressed in space, time, and manifestation. So this power now, we've seen, is drawing things into manifestation and allowing them to lapse back into the unmanifest. And it is always moving forward with tremendous speed. Everything is newly unfolding at each moment. How fast? And the sense of it, when we look at the totality of the cosmos, we find everything is moving at a tremendous speed. If we observe a single, let's say you begin to observe a stone, it seems as if it is not moving, it is static. But if you go deeper into the observation, zoom in down to the level of the molecules, you see them vibrating continuously at a very high speed. You go down to the atoms and you discover that the electrons are whirling around the atoms at the speed of light. The electrons themselves seem to be in a spin at the speed of light, and so fast as to be almost unmeasurable to all our tools. And so at the core of everything, at the very heart of the material manifestation, there is this tremendous speed of whirling movement by which the appearance of a stable, static form is phenomenally created, though nothing is actually still. Everything is moving, and by that speed, it is sustained in its appearance of being fixed or static. All the other movements that we see, the bird flying, the shooting star that falls, the sun that rises, are movements which are secondary, phenomenal. Deep within them is this tremendous speed of the cosmic horse. Therefore, the word ashwa, carrying the sense of speed, is the appropriate word to describe this tremendous creative power. Now we return to an image we used last time, and then we will take it further, pushing the limits of our own mental conception. We use this image of this creative process, the image of the light shining. So I described you are in the midst of let's say, a museum or a forest, where everything is already laid out. Everything exists already, but it is dark and you have a torchlight. As you walk with the torchlight, the direction in which the light is shone, in that direction things come into awareness. And as the light moves away, things slide out of awareness. And yet nothing ever moved. The only thing that moved was you and your light of awareness, the thought, the power of your consciousness, the creative power. We will now take this a step further. Imagine now, and this is approaching the nature of the experience of Parabrahman, all these objects which have been arranged are all there, but there is no space and time. Where are these objects placed? They are all placed coterminous, all one upon the other, simultaneously together in a single moment, spot. You, as the cosmic creative power, hold all this infinite possibility of all things that can ever be, that could ever be, that will ever be. All things are held simultaneously in identity in this consciousness. And now your creative power, your attention of consciousness turns to observe certain things in this cosmic clutter of infinite possibility. And as your attention turns to certain possibilities, they come into light of your awareness, light of your creative power of thought. And as you dwell on them, they become materialized. You dwelling on them, place them in right relation to each other, which draws them into form of space and time and cosmos. Out of the chaos, you draw certain possibilities in order, in harmony, which is now cosmos. Chaos becomes cosmos, where you put your attention to become aware, to materialize, and therefore to draw into manifestation. And as your attention moves to something beyond, to something further, you draw certain other possibilities into your awareness. Some possibilities you allow to lapse, no more in your interest, and they fade back out of your awareness, remaining exactly where they were always. Nothing has moved, nothing has changed, only your awareness has shifted where it has placed its attention. But even subjectively, your attention never moved. Your awareness did not move in space or time. It simply moved to what it dwells on in attention. So in a sense, this is the closest we can come to in the human conception to the nature of Parabrahman and this creative power of the divine consciousness. What he dwells upon in himself with interest, with attention, becomes now drawn into manifestation in order. The power of his awareness by which this infinite chaos of possibilities is arranged in a particular way, in a certain relation, and we will use the word right relation, perfect harmony with each other. That creative power of arranging in harmony is what we call the supermind, Vijnana. As that power arranges, it places in full freedom in certain relationships. It then dwells in concentration on specific forms, specific highlights of possibility that are now drawn out and projected into an extreme focus of formulation. And that is where it becomes physically manifest. So we see degrees of this focus, which become in the cosmic experience the different gradations of the worlds. From that original causal consciousness where all things are taken up, arranged, put in right relation, and still there is an infinity of possibilities. Certain possibilities are drawn out, highlighted more, and a further specific form created, projected more, until at the lowest level it becomes this physical world experience, objective to the creative consciousness, and therefore objective to us who are part of the creative consciousness. Each one of us is as if a special focus of that creative consciousness as he looks at himself and his play of possibilities. Each one of us is, in essence, that creative power that is seeing himself drawing into manifestation, but we are a tiny fragment of it, of that creative seeing. And we, identified with this very narrow perspective of our little limited human form, we look at the whole universe and say, oh, the universe exists, the universe is changing, and we are being carried by this universe. And as we cling to an object of attraction, we find that object gradually dissolving from our attachment. Things which we have cherished for years eventually break, gradually fall apart and fade into the past. Where is the past? It's no more there in our living experience. It is there only in a memory. Whose memory? The memory of the creative power which looked at those things and allowed them to lapse back. But we are not aware of ourselves as that. We are only aware of its special focus that we identify with. And so the whole universe and the experience of the universe is nothing but himself, observing himself and drawing out of himself, of his infinite possibilities, some possibilities which are thrown out creatively and others reabsorbed from the creation. We again come back to that image which we used last time from Sri Aurobindo's description of a creator, a writer of a play, who holds first in himself an experience, casts in that experience so many characters and their whole lives, their character, their development, their unfolding relationships. And out of that pulls out a limited set, a limited selection, which he arranges in a particular way, which becomes now the novel. In the novel, all that is implied but not expressed. The birth, childhood and growth of the hero is implied but not described. The story begins when, as a young man, he suddenly realizes that he has to do something. But the rest is held behind and exists in the creative vision of the author, and to us as reader, it is implied, it is suggested, and perhaps there are allusions to it, but it is not formulated and therefore not brought into material manifestation, not materialized. Such is the nature of the physical universe. It is a selected expression in objective experience of things which are more complete in their possibilities in the subtler worlds, still more rich and diverse in the higher domains, and then entirely free in infinite possibility in the origin of Parabrahman, from which the selection surges out to manifestation. And this is the creative power of the cosmic horse, to draw into manifestation and at the same time to withdraw from manifestation. Certain things are put into manifestation for a short time and then quickly withdrawn. Other things are held but allowed to change, develop, unfold, eventually withdrawing to be replaced by something else. So the two are separate powers, and they selectively pick out of that infinite possibility and then withdraw. Now all this is happening in Brahman, in his totality, and nothing is really moving. And yet, in his experience, things are moving as they unfold. So there's this very interesting double status. In his origin, we say he is unchangeable, eternal, complete. All possibilities ever present. Nothing has changed. And yet, in the way he moves his attention to cast into manifestation, everything is continuously moving. And the two are not really in conflict. They are simply two simultaneous statuses. One turning to highlight, another status standing back, ever free. Sat, asat. Moving into manifestation, dwelling in his freedom, unmanifest, always complete. But there are two words here which Sri Aurobindo uses: chaos, cosmos. The occult sea of chaos in which everything is present simultaneously. No order exists because all possibilities are there. The turning of the attention, highlighting certain things, places them into order in relationship. And this is the manifest sea of cosmos. And now we reread what Sri Aurobindo says here. The birth of one of the powers, is in the eastern ocean, of the other in the western. That is to say, in Sat and Asat, in the ocean of being and the ocean of denial of being. Or else, in Vyakrita Prakriti and Avyakrita Prakriti, occult sea of chaos and manifest sea of cosmos. And these are the two greatnesses of this cosmic horse. Now we will dwell a little more on the words used, because they are again suggestive of something. The words used for the emergence, the power that creates, which draws into manifestation. Tasya purve samudre yoni. In his front, or purva is front and east. In this frontal eastern ocean womb. So Sri Aurobindo has described this in his translation. He says, day was the grandeur that was born before the horse as he galloped. The eastern ocean gave it birth. But when we dwell on the Sanskrit words, we find some interesting ideas. First of all, this emergence of the power is from the ocean, and from the ocean which is womb. So Sri Aurobindo translates as eastern ocean gave it birth. But it is a womb, a creative womb which is oceanic, from which this power surges to manifest. On the other side, it doesn't say west, it says the other side, as if in opposition, is the ocean womb of darkness in which things slide into the unmanifest. But both are described as wombs. From one things are born, in the other things are reabsorbed. But they are creative origins. The reabsorption is also then seen not merely a dissolution as in breaking down, but a manifestation, a drawing out, a giving birth which dissolves, as if a giving birth of darkness that covers, hides or withdraws from light. So both are as wombs. But the word used for the east is purve, in front. And here we come to a very interesting association, which will be a slight digression, but you will see how the yogic tradition has retained some of these profound truths. They have come into common use and we have forgotten their origin. The name for the east is Purva, which means in front. It also means in the beginning. So it is the side where the dawn takes place, the beginning of emergence into manifestation, the frontal part of the cosmic horse in which things move into manifestation. West, the name we use for west is Paschim, which means behind. So there is the front in which things are manifest, and then there is the other, the behind, in which they slide into manifestation. And the suggestion is this forward movement of the cosmic horse. The names we give to the directions are related to this deep spiritual reality. There is a forward movement, in front, and emergence into manifestation, and behind the thing fades into the unmanifest. What about the other two sides? So there is the words used are Dakshin, which is for the south, and Uttar, which is for the north. But if we were to face the east, the right is also Dakshin. The same word for south, is also the word for right. So it's as if we are facing the east, our right is the south, our left is the north, and the same word is used. But you still have to go into the etymology. And the suggestion, dakshina, is this discrimination, separation, distinguishing. Uttara, the etymology would suggest greater, transcending, standing above. Also, by extension, it is the word used as response. So the suggestion is, on one side is this discriminating faculty, analyzing. On the other side is this power to stand above in synthesis. And you see something very interesting here. There is a forward movement emerging into manifestation. Behind it is sliding out of manifestation. And on the two sides, the wings of this process of manifestation is the analyzing, dividing consciousness, and the synthesizing, uniting. And you will immediately recall our study from the Isha Upanishad, in which these two powers were described as the powers of consciousness in manifestation. The words used for the two powers, which Sri Aurobindo translates as, or which popularly is translated as knowledge and ignorance, are the words which mean consciousness of unity, consciousness of distinction. So when the consciousness moves from above, from the unity, towards distinct manifestation, it moves by dividing consciousness, going into particulars, separating, distinguishing, highlighting, in opposition as if. On the other side, when we return from the extreme manifestation back to our origin, it synthesizes, it takes opposites, unites, transcends, and ascends by a consciousness of unity which is increasingly highlighted. So this power of consciousness to divide and to unite, or the state of consciousness of multiplicity and unity, are the two great powers in manifestation which are described as knowledge and ignorance. Knowledge because uniting, the power of seeing oneness, is what leads us to the ultimate reality. And the other side, the power of multiplicity, is described as ignorance because when we are fully immersed in multiplicity, we are even lost to ourselves. We do not know our own origin, we are cut off completely, everything is split, separate, and eventually even lost in the darkness of ignorance in its extreme. So the words are very suggestive here in the verse from the Isha, and we can just look at the text here. So you remember verse 9 and 10, verse 9 and 11. So, into a blind darkness they enter who follow after the ignorance, that is the multiplicity of consciousness. They as if into a greater darkness who devote themselves to the knowledge alone, that is the consciousness of oneness. And the suggestion is that we must master both. He who knows that as both in one, the knowledge and the ignorance, by the ignorance crosses beyond death, and by the knowledge enjoys immortality. So this is the emphasis of the Isha, that both facets, consciousness of multiplicity and the consciousness of unity, must be seen as complementary, both to be realized to know the completeness of the divine. The words used is vidya and avidya. So you see how in this description of the cosmic horse, just the one word in the whole verse which says purva, if you dwell on it, you discover something so profound, because purva is opposed by Paschim, and then you have Dakshin and Uttar. And if you think about the powers that they suggest, suddenly it opens you to this whole dimension, which is not explicitly stated in the verse at all. And this is the great power of the Vedic formulation. A word is thrown, rightly placed, in relation to everything. And you can take that word, dwell on its deeper meaning, and often there are layers of meaning. Dwell on its relation to the other words and why it is placed here in this arrangement, why it is repeated there, and the relationships reveal again to you dimensions of insight and experience. And the whole thing, when we review, is so compact, so complete, so profoundly interdependent as a complete experience. So this horse galloping forward, Sri Aurobindo uses this word, the zeitgeist, the time spirit, whatever he turns his face towards or arrives at as he gallops through time, that appears, or as we say, comes into being. Whatever he passes away from and so leaves, that disappears out of being, or as we say, perishes. And we dwelt on this word zeitgeist and the character of compulsion of the time spirit. Now we have here three images. One is this horse driving, running forward in great speed, and the front is the dawn. The eyes are the sun which see and create as he sees. Behind is where the trailing movement dissipating back into the unmanifest. This is one image. The second image, which Sri Aurobindo has brought in the commentary, is the time spirit, the zeitgeist. Time here as Kala, but time as the creative power moving forward as power would also be Kali. And the third image he has used is the universal thought expressing itself as time reaches them, as if the mind of the divine turns and what he turns to is now drawn into manifestation. And at this point, I want to merge these three images. And you will see how so many different formulations are possible to this same experience, but they approach with a different emphasis. And we have the popular image of Kali as this creative power of God, Krishna and Kali. And Krishna is his power to manifest in time. There's another variation to this, where Kali dances on the chest of the Lord. But she is this creative power in this whirl of movement, drawing into manifestation what the Lord wills. He is the support. He supports her in all that she manifests. But what she manifests is what he chooses, what he wants. She fulfills his vision. He sanctions her fulfilling, manifesting power. And you see this implied, though not explicit, in this tremendous speed of the horse as he gallops in manifestation. And at the same time, this movement forward is not something going out there. It is the mind of the divine dwelling on himself in tremendous speed, drawing out. And if you now allow these three images or experiential identifications to merge into a single experience, you have something which is almost undescribable. The divine dwelling on himself, the mind of God creating in tremendous speed, is that creative power sanctioned by him who stands above, free of all. But it is a power that as if goes forth, goes out, surging into manifestation, although it is always within himself. The next thing which would naturally come when we think in these images, in these experiences, what is this power carrying? What is it fulfilling? What is the intention? What purpose does it serve? And here, the second part of this verse comes in. I read the translation. He became higher and bore the gods, Vaja and bore the Gandharvas, Arvan and bore the Titans, Ashwa and bore mankind. The sea was his brother and the sea was his birthplace. And again, very cryptic, but Sri Aurobindo's commentary prepares us for a full understanding. Obviously, all these four words of Haya, Vajin, Arvan, Ashwa are representative of four special characteristics of this creative power of the cosmic horse, each corresponding to a certain domain of existence and of beings corresponding to those domains. At the highest are the gods, carried by this cosmic horse as Haya. Next, you have the Gandharvas, carried by the gods, by the horse as Vajin. And then you have the Titans, carried by the horse in his aspect of Arvan. And then the human beings, carried by Ashwa. So the full explanation for this, Sri Aurobindo goes deep into the etymology and it stretches over 4 pages. But we will read the first paragraph of that, which describes something common to them all. Sri Aurobindo says, then the sage throws out briefly a description, not exhaustive but typical, of the relations of the horse to the different natural types of being that seem to possess this universe. See, the universe, if it was merely this vast, massive machinery of things, would be quite pointless. It becomes meaningful when there are conscious beings who populate the universe. And as conscious beings, they participate in the whole evolutionary process, in the creative process of the divine. That's when the universe has meaning. Otherwise, it's simply this gigantic machine, pointless. So the beings who participate in this unfolding movement of the universe are fourfold broadly. For all of them, he is the Vahana. He bears them up in his infinite strength and speed and motion. He bears all of them without respect of differences. Sama bhavena, that is with equality. With the divine impartiality and equality of soul. Samam hi Brahma. This is all phrases from the Bhagavad Gita. That equality is the nature of the divine. With the divine impartiality and equality of soul, he carries all these creatures, whatever they may be. So there are 2 ideas here. First is the equality, and the second is the idea that he carries them. And if you look at the human experience, it's obvious. Where are we going with our life? We may choose whatever we like, but the time spirit chooses differently and we are compelled to follow. We are as if swept away by the stream of unfolding time. We find ourselves surprised at each step. We make plans and we are surprised by changes of circumstances. All that we created in our planning is suddenly irrelevant in the new circumstances that spring up before us. Who carries us really? It is this horse, not we. Although we have the illusion that we are choosing our life and holding the reins of the horse, it is the horse who carries the rider. So, Sri Aurobindo writes, to the type of each individual being, this universal might adapts himself. He seems to take upon himself their image. He is Haya to the gods, Arvan to the Asura, Vajin to the Gandharva, Ashwa to men. Now, what exactly these words correspond to and why they correspond in this way, we will see in the later pages where he discusses the etymology of each of these words. But broadly speaking, just generally, anticipating the text to come, the first Haya, carrying the gods, is this light and freedom of the gods, which is the character of the divine beings. With the Asuras, it is Arvan, which is this energy, titanic strength. With the Gandharvas, it is Vajin, representing here the plenitude and the harmony and the enjoyment. And with the human beings, it is Ashwa, representing here the speed. So we will see the full sense of the words and what the profound suggestions the etymology carries later on. Then Sri Aurobindo quotes from the Bhagavad Gita, Ye yatha mam prapadyante tams tathaiva bhajamyaham mama vartmanu vartante manushya partha sarvashah. The meaning of this verse is, as people approach me, in the same way I respond to them. All beings follow my path as I choose in every possible way. I'm making a rough translation. But you see how this is stated here in the context of the horse. And Sri Aurobindo now describes this relationship of the riders and the horse. In reality, they, that is the riders, are made in his image, not he in theirs. Though he seems to obey them and follow their needs and impulses, though they handle the whip, ply the spur, and tug the reins, it is he who bears them on in the course of time that are marked out for him by his hidden self. He is free and exults in the swiftness of his galloping. So the idea is the cosmic movement is carrying everything. And even though there are these beings conscious in different degrees, a whole hierarchy of beings of consciousness, they think that they are guiding things, they think that they are choosing, but actually it is he who chooses. And there is only this external expression that they have of seeming to choose. Actually, it is he who bears them on in the courses of time that are marked out for him by his hidden self. That is, the divine chooses deep in his core what he wants to be in manifestation. And as he moves to manifest, there is a gigantic cosmic movement in which these individual points of conscious beings participate. They have a practical freedom, and yet the larger direction of their movement is compelled by the time spirit of the divine will, the cosmic horse. And this is the human experience. I can choose, what do I want to eat today? You can make a choice, you can choose to cook this, prepare that, buy this, buy that. And yes, there is a practical freedom that you have. But how free is this truly? We recognize this only when there is a crisis. There is a gigantic storm somewhere. There is a surge of the ocean. And suddenly all the human organization is destroyed by an earthquake or a storm. And what do we fall back on? We are helpless before nature. What nature gives, we have to take. The human organization depends entirely on nature's gifts, but we build upon those gifts a certain flexibility of organization and arrangement to create a practical appearance of freedom. But if you go from country to country, you will find the staple diet is what nature provides. The rhythms that nature sets in her seasons are the rhythms that we are compelled to follow. Yes, we can stretch it a little bit, we can preserve the food, but the more you move out of the rhythm of nature, the more difficult it becomes to sustain your so-called freedom. In practice, our freedom is a superficial reality. Deep in the core of the horse, the divine will chooses, and what it chooses inevitably compels and drives everything in the cosmos. That's why he says, in reality, they are made in his image. Though he seems to obey them and follow their needs and impulses, they are made in his image. You see how true this is of everything in the human experience. You can observe the geography of a country and describe the psychology of the people. You observe a desert. The people living there will be tough, they will be hardy, they will even be strong to a point of insensitivity. If they are not, they cannot survive there. Rather, they are cast into the mold of the desert space. They enjoy to be in that space. On the other side, you come to a place which is full of plenty of fresh water, fresh fruits, flowers, beautiful scenes. These people will be laid back, comfortable, enjoying themselves all the time, enjoying the sense experience of life, not worrying too much to struggle, to fight, to become strong. They will be weak. Will they be thinkers? Perhaps, perhaps not. Again, the environment will reflect whether it is a pure sensory enjoyment or it will be an enjoyment which turns to a higher thought and a higher ideal. Literally, we are the product of our immediate environment. We seem as if to be in charge, to shape our environment, but that is a secondary truth. The more fundamental truth is we are carried by our circumstances. At least that's how we are in our first appearance. If we observe now the 4 stages, you will see how from the human there is an emergence into strength and power of the asuric nature, which vehemently opposes and tries to assert itself over its environment. Its strength is its great power, but the strength is egoistic and therefore more destructive. You ascend a degree above that and you find that there is a harmony which is now discovered. You have learned to grow in strength. Having become strong, you set a new harmony with your environment, and now you arrange and organize yourself and the environment to manifest a greater possibility and an enjoyment of the Gandharvas. But still you are not free. You live in the universal type. A step further is a step into light of consciousness which is truly free. And there you become co-creators as the gods are. They can decide and in their decision, in their will, participate in freedom, in the cosmic manifestation and play the reins of the cosmic horse, and so create new possibilities, bring into manifestation what was not, and so participate in the divine play. The human evolution is intended to lead us to such a liberation of consciousness, not a withdrawal from life, but a recovery of our divine nature in life. And then as co-creators of the divine will, we become, each one of us, a focal point for the divine will to manifest and play in the divine manifestation in full freedom, sharing in His freedom. And this is the nature of the unfolding evolution and the direction in which it moves, culminating in what we may call the true sense, in its true sense, the divine Leela, the divine play in which He manifests His bliss, His delight in His freedom. At each moment, a new possibility, a new surprise, something unheard of, unimagined, brought into manifestation, and for the purpose of the delight. What the horse is doing as a gigantic cosmic movement now becomes individualized in so many different players in the cosmos. So this is the sense of this verse, and the details we will get into study of those 4 words in the next paragraph. But now we can step back and look at the big picture and see how this verse captures something so profound in words which are so simple, using an imagery which is of a routine day, but describing something which is far beyond our normal human experience. We can reread this verse and meditate on it. Briefly, before we take that up, you see how from this verse a more literal meaning could be drawn, which is the basis for a ritual expression. You have all heard of the ashwamedha yajna, and this is the ashwamedha, the cosmic horse. And the ashwamedha yajna you will recall from the tales of the Mahabharata. When the king is coronated, he performs this, what is described as the horse sacrifice. It's not really a sacrifice, it is a yajna. Consecration would be the right word. And the horse, bedecked, arranged, is identified with this cosmic horse. An actual physical horse is identified with this cosmic horse, and then he is released to freely wander. And like the cosmic horse who wanders through the infinite possibilities of Parabrahman, this physical horse wanders all over the land. Wherever he goes, he is followed by the army of the king himself following the horse. Wherever the horse goes, he is now staked to be part of the kingdom. And if somebody opposes the horse, a battle takes place and you conquer that domain, it becomes part of the kingdom. And eventually, the Ashwamedha Yajna finishes when the horse comes back to his origin. And all the territory that he has covered now is treated as part of this empire. And it is very symbolic, because now into this horse is infused this divine consciousness invoked in him. And the horse as if charts out and determines the space of the kingdom now which the king will rule. Very symbolic, if you look at it this way, of the way the divine cosmic horse wanders through infinite possibility of Parabrahman. That domain is the domain of Parabrahman cast out into physical manifestation in space and time. It is the territory carved out by the horse, now manifested, to which the king, the Lord, the divine enjoyer, stakes his claim in space and time. So the verse which we now read and meditate on. Day was the grandeur that was born before the horse as he galloped. The eastern ocean gave it birth. Night was the grandeur that was born behind him, and its birth was from the other waters. These are the grandeurs that came into being on either side of the horse. He became higher and bore the gods, Vajra and bore the Gandharvas, Arvan and bore the Titans, Ashwa and bore mankind. The sea was his brother, and the sea was his birthplace.